Yeah, I went solo when I was a teenager because, like I said, the bands just weren't working out, and I just needed to keep making music and just be busy and as busy as possible. And I always ran into problems aside of that. I always ran into problems with working with like basically all frontmen mentality.
Hey, Dean, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music. We'll talk about the EP you just released.
Sounds good.
Sweet, man. So are you originally from Maine? Is that what I read?
Yeah, I am from Maine. I am currently in Maine.
Currently in Maine, born and
Yeah.
raised there.
Yep.
What was that like?
It's boring.
Ha!
It's it's been good. I love living
Cold?
here. It gets cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets very cold. Um, Pretty much have winter from December through May. And
Wow.
then, and yeah, and summers are it's very hot right now. So excuse my sweatiness.
All good.
I haven't installed my AC yet, which will be in my window for about a month, and then right back to the cold.
Okay.
Um, no, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but no, summer's beautiful. Fall is my favorite here.
Okay.
October and November are the absolute best in Maine.
That's amazing. I've my best friend's from Maine. I don't know exactly what part because I met him in San Diego when he moved there like in middle school.
Yeah,
But he's a big Boston fan. He's a fan of all the Boston sports. I don't know if that's typical from being up in Maine.
it can be. Yeah,
Okay.
it definitely. We don't really have a lot. Well, we have sports here, but yeah, the a lot of the people that I know around here love the Boston teams.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that interesting because I didn't know how close it was. I'm so bad with like geography of I just recently moved about 2.5 years ago to Tennessee, and it's so weird being like close and driving distance to everything from being in San Diego. It's like people think California is they don't realize that from my place in San Diego to San Francisco is like 10 hours. It's like driving up the whole entire United States.
Right.
So,
Yeah. From where I am, Boston is about 2 hours.
oh, not bad. Okay.
I'm in southern Maine, but if you go like you can drive like 8 hours up and you're still in Maine, but it's
Oh, wow.
definitely
So it's
not
fairly big state then.
it's big, but it's not as big as California.
Yeah. Rad. Well, what about music? Do you come from an artistic household, musical household?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I come from a family that loves music. And my mom always wanted to be a singer, and she never really pursued that. It was when we were growing up, it was more she would be singing karaoke bars.
Oh, that's
Um,
rad.
yeah. Being a little kid going to like the local bowling alley, and there'd be like a bar in the back that you would go to every Saturday and just listen to your mom sing. Um, but
What were her go-to?
Shania Twain,
Okay.
Olivia Newton-John, Pat Benatar, that kind of stuff, and
That's cool. Yeah.
she still sings the same 5 songs.
That's amazing. Did you ever get up there with her or just
Um,
get up in general? Or did you have to kind of stand outside the bar bowling alley because you weren't 21 or
well, I was so young that
yeah.
they just let me in.
Oh, that's funny.
And yeah, we would do because she was her idol was always Olivia Newton-John. So as a little kid, it is funny to look back on now because of the lyrics, but
Yeah.
when I would do duets with her and we would sing like You're the One That I Want from Greece and Summer Lovin'. And then you look back on it, it's like, huh, okay. Yeah. Weird singing that with my mom when I was
Right.
like 6 years old, but it was a blast. She loved it. I loved it. And she's singing in the church band now, so that it's great to see her still doing it.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you grow up in the church, and were you part of like the worship band or anything
Yeah,
like that?
didn't really we got into it more when I was like a preteen. And I don't really attend church anymore, at least not regularly.
Sure.
But yeah, when I was my later teens, I played drums in the worship team with my mom singing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was
And
wondering because I've interviewed a lot of artists that kind of start out in the church, worship band or whatever. Because I mean, not only are you getting a lot of experience playing with people and playing a lot, but you're playing to an audience, like a guaranteed audience almost.
right, right. And there's a lot more behind it too. And it's some churches I find are, they're way more serious about the perfectionism and the professionalism, and then other churches are just more laid back. And like my mother's church is more like anybody who wants to be on the team and worship for the Lord can.
Okay.
And that can give mixed results. um
Sure. There's no
but
real
it
tryouts, or they'll just
right.
let you on. That's
But I
funny.
mean, either way, like and the if the congregation is like they get it and they love it. They just love seeing people up there in the spirit and doing their
Yeah,
thing.
excited
And
about it.
yeah.
So you said you played drums. Did you start on drums? Is that your first instrument?
Nope, my first real instrument was guitar.
Okay. How
Um
old were you when you started playing guitar?
like 5 or 6 years old when I
Oh,
started
wow.
trying. Yeah.
Okay.
My first so in the town next to where I was raised, there was a dump, and they had a part of the dump where people would leave things. It was called the swap shop,
Okay.
where you'd kind of just like, it was the things that wasn't really trash, but like somebody else could find a use for it.
Mhm.
And my first guitar I found there. It was like completely unplayable acoustic
Sure.
guitar. But that was my first guitar, and I spray painted it gold. And a few years later, I smashed it when I was going through my punk phase.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome. Do you have any footage of that, or is it just you just did it?
I just had anger issues and like
There you go.
didn't really, yeah. No.
As
I
most
wish
teens
I,
or preteens.
yeah, I wish I still had it. I unfortunately that was kind of a thing that I did with a lot of my old instruments. They're no longer here, unfortunately. I
Oh,
wish
you'd
wish they
smash
were.
them?
Either smash them or trade them in. Well, I didn't smash them all.
Oh, I was gonna say
But
that's pretty awesome. You just broke all of them. You're like, okay, I'm gonna get a new guitar. Smash.
I'd either yeah, every single time. No, I would either destroy it by just pure brutality, or I'd take it apart to try to create something else.
Mhm.
Um, or like I didn't know what I was doing, and I ended up ruining a lot of things. But like I'd take it apart, put two different guitars together, just try to, I don't know what was going on in my mind, but it's something that I did a lot. I'd just take a Stratocaster and try to combine it with a Les Paul and just things like
That's
that.
cool
And
though. Yeah, just kind of get they're probably different sounds than anyone else would be able to get just, at a guitar or an amplifier or anything like that.
yeah, I mean, it didn't really go according to plan, but it was cool to the experience of it was pretty fun.
For
Um,
sure.
but
So you started guitar very early then. Did you
I s-
continue to play like or after you realized maybe that guitar wasn't the best or you smashed it like how like were you into it right away? Was it something you're like, "Okay, this is really fun. I'm going to continue to play it?"
no, I
Okay.
mean, I want it wasn't fun. And I went to guitar lessons kicking and screaming. Like just did not like that initial couple of years of learning the instrument this should be easy. Like, I want to do it, so I should be able to do it. Isn't that what guitar lessons is about? Like, I sit in and I do a 30-minute lesson and I should know how to play it. I had no rhythm at all. My guitar teacher and my music teacher at school, like, were just constantly on me about tapping my foot, counting, and it was brutal. And
Mhm.
I wanted to learn. I wanted the end result, but the getting there, it took about 2 years for me to be like, okay, I like it now and I'm enjoying it. And I just had to or my parents had to force me to get through that initial hurdle. And
Mhm.
I'm glad they did,
Yeah.
because, even today, if I go a few months without playing guitar, I don't forget how to play it, but it becomes like I have to build calluses again. Um, like when COVID hit, I didn't really touch my guitar for quite a while. And when I picked it back up, I was like, oh man, I suck. Like, have I ever been able, like, what was I thinking? I can't play anything that I thought that I could play before. And then you just build it back up and it comes back. But
When you stopped playing guitar, what did you switch to a different instrument, or were you not doing music?
initially I just needed a break.
Mhm.
Because I was playing so many shows, I was constantly on the road, that anytime I was home, my equipment would not leave my van. I wouldn't bring it in, I wouldn't touch it, I would just sit on the couch and watch horror movies. And that was like the first half of COVID for me. It was like, okay, I don't have to do this right now, so I'm not going to. But then when I got back into it, yeah, I didn't pick up the guitar right away. I went to the keyboard and I went to the drums, and that was pretty much where because I wanted to play again, but I wanted to play for myself. I wanted to play in a different way and explore different things.
Mhm.
So that's what I did, and eventually I picked the guitar back up.
Got it. When did you were like, went from guitar, is that when you started playing drums after that, or did you play piano, or like what was your kind of progression as far as instruments went?
I think it was guitar to drums. Um, and basically with drums was a different story. Guitar took me because I had all the fundamentals and I had spent so much time working on my rhythm, because
Mhm.
that was like my weak point. So that ended up becoming my strength like, I've never been a shredder. I've been more of a rhythm guy. And so I think it was probably 9 or 10 years old when I started playing drums. And I went to the library one day and I rented a drum instruction video, and I set up my drums in the garage, set up it was a VHS tape I rented, set up the VCR and the TV in the garage as loud as I could possibly have it, and I just played along for the entire day, and by the next day I could play a simple drum groove. And just got addicted and just very quickly picked up the drums. And that, though it's not my first instrument, I think it's like that's my instrument.
Mhm.
I don't really play as often as I like to, but that's the one that every time I play, I just completely lose myself.
Okay. And
'Cause I
did you
just
start aside from the church band, did you start your own bands, or were you interested in writing your own music at that point, or did that come
Yeah.
later in life?
The church band came way after.
Oh, okay.
The bands started first. I was in my first band when I was like 9, and
Wow. How do you get people together at 9 that are good enough to play? That's crazy.
you don't. You don't. You get a bunch of people. Everybody wants to be the guitar player, for one
Sure.
thing. Everybody wants to be the singer. Nobody can play. Um, and it was really hard. I went through a lot of it because I wanted music immediately was my thing. And with all my other friends, like, their thing was karate, or their
Mhm.
thing was lacrosse, or their thing was something entirely different, generally sports. And I was not a sports guy. I am not a sports guy. I will never be a sports guy. No, nothing against it. I'm tall, lanky, and just awkward.
That's the first thing I'm talking to you about is like sports teams from Boston.
No, I love it. No, I don't know anything about sports. Never have. But yeah, no, it was not easy, and I got kicked out of like every band I was in when I was a kid because I was a menace, like very, because I was serious about it,
Right.
and I had an ego like nobody's business. I had my amplifier would be louder than the whole band. My voice would be louder than the whole band. And every time we'd practice, they'd be turning me down, and just it. Then I very quietly got kicked out of my first band, which was called Split Vision. Yeah,
You quietly got kicked out. They just continued to play and stop calling you?
yeah, nobody told me, and
Oh, that's a bummer.
yeah, nobody told me. Well, they all were like, I don't remember exactly how it happened. I was very young, but it was basically like they just stopped inviting me to practice, or I'd call and they say that they're too busy. And then I found out, was like, come on, guys. Like it broke my heart, broke my little
I bet.
10-year-old heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Um, yeah. So when do you, I mean, aside from those early bands, like when you're in high school or anything, do you form a band or when do you start writing your own songs? Like when did that all start?
well, I started writing my songs. I started writing some, they weren't good songs, but I started writing songs before I even started playing guitar.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
and well, like, like you'd be a little kid taking a shower and just humming something, and then you write these terrible lyrics to it, and then you run downstairs and sing it to your mom, and she's so proud of you. um
Not a lot
and
of kids do that though. So that's really rad that you obviously have always wanted to, or were always doing that.
I don't know, man, it's just always because like and it's weird to me when I hear like that truth, which is totally true. It's weird to me because it's so normal to me, and it's been my life, my whole life, that anytime I'm playing a song to somebody or like talking about music, and I start talking about like, so you know what's going on in this part, like, hold on, let's rewind it, listen to that, you hear that thing going on in the background, and they're like, dude, let me listen to the song. Or like my girlfriend gets so mad at me because I listen to music in such an analytical way, and it makes me so excited when I catch these little tricks. And everybody around me hates it. And
I'm the same way though. I love nerding out on like the little things that you'll hear in a song. It's like, oh wow, that's so rad. And then most people are like, what? Like they don't even hear it
yeah,
or care to hear it.
but at the same time, I wish that I could listen to music like that. I wish that I could just, like, I can't even watch movies like that anymore. um I wish that I could just listen to a song and hear the song,
Mhm.
and not hear the harmonies, and not hear the extra percussion that's happening, and not hear the amount of reverb that is over here. And like, you know, I wish that I wish I was dumb. Like, it's like, I don't mean that insultingly, but I wish
Right.
that I could listen to music like I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, like you're
Um,
unaware of what's really happening.
because it used to be magic, right? Like
Uh-huh.
everything is a magic trick until you figure out how it works,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So like,
once you see behind the curtain, you're like, oh, this isn't as cool as I
right,
thought it was, or it's, oh, I can break this down more so than I would have
right,
before. Like before, you could really, oh my gosh, how is this all happening? And then when you can kind of figure it out, it's like, oh, that's doing this or this. But I mean,
yeah,
that's still pretty amazing to be able to pick that stuff out, right? I mean, especially for your own music.
absolutely, yeah. And I mean, and that's another thing that my girlfriend gets upset about, like when I will be like, I think we went to, if we go to a if we go anywhere and I'm like, oh my God, I know how they're doing that, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna start doing it otherwise. And I'm gonna use that in my show. And it's just like, cool. let's like, that's really cool, Dean. It's like, okay, sorry, I'm doing it again. Sorry.
That's funny. But so once you started, like, what was kind of before this project that you're doing, like in high school, did you, the band that you were in, did you guys, you said, sounds like you played a bunch of shows, but like, did you end up then graduating, going to school for music, or was that a band that you stayed in for a while beforehand, or like, what did that
Um,
look like?
I did not go to school for music. I thought about it, but kind of along the lines of what I was just saying about the when the magic goes away. Um, when I was in high school, I took music theory classes and I was in concert band and all of that stuff. And the more that I learned music theory, the more it just kind of took away. Like, it's important. You don't need to know music theory, but if you do know music theory, it helps.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I decided that I didn't want to go to school for it because I didn't want to take away like I wanted to just figure it out myself and
Mhm.
just do it my own way, even if I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, and hindsight, I kind of wish that I had gone to school for it, but at the same time, I'm glad I didn't because I've had a lot of opportunities and I've learned a lot just by being in it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the bands, I could never really keep a band together because of it, like it was just always that same problem of so one of the big problems that I have in Maine is there's a very tight community of musicians, and I've never really fit into any group. I've never really fit in with any clique or whatever. Still don't. And so I was always kind of on the outside, and everybody I was playing with everybody else. And so, and that's great. And I love that. I love that the community is so tight knit. And it just becomes a problem when your drummer is everybody else's drummer,
Oh,
or
right. Yeah,
your
they get the pick of the litter, so to speak. They can play with anyone, right?
and because they're playing with everybody, it kind of like it affects your schedule, it affects their schedules, and it's very hard because like when you're trying to do it seriously and the people that you're working with they're doing it seriously, but it's like they're more of like a pickup guy,
Mhm.
and it becomes very difficult. So that was one of the reasons I ended up having to go solo, because
Okay.
when you're just the only person that you have to rely on, it's a lot easier.
Right, right. So once you go solo, like, at what age were you, or when did that start? Like, when did this project start?
I went solo when I was 17, I think,
Oh,
16
wow,
or
okay.
17.
So a
So yeah,
while.
I figured it out. Well, again, like I said, I used to have a big ego. Um, Still have an ego. It's not as but it like it's still there, but I'm much more aware of it now.
Right.
And
Well,
I
you kinda
can
have to in a creative field, right? I mean, to
totally.
or, like, at least the confidence.
Yeah. And I mean, like if I said I didn't have an ego, I'd be lying. Like it's my name on the t-shirt, it's my name on
Right.
it's my face on every album cover. Um, so it's I'm honest about it. Some people aren't. But yeah, I went solo when I was a teenager because like I said, the bands just weren't working out, and I just needed to keep making music and just be busy and as busy as possible. And I always ran into problems aside of that. I always ran into problems with working with like basically all frontmen mentality, where everybody in the band was a songwriter, everybody in the band wanted to be the producer, everybody in the band wanted just as much control over what it sounded like or what it said. And when you're the guy paying for the studio session, when you're the guy running the show, and when you're the guy that doesn't want to ruffle feathers, it kind of gets difficult.
Mhm.
And so I just stopped being in bands and I stopped writing with other people because like I heard something in my head and I wanted that to be what it sounded like. Now, that said, if somebody else in the band had written the song, they get to wear that hat. They get to be the one that determines what it sounds like. But I just never had a group of people that um, could work in that way, at least
Mhm.
not back then. Um, where I'm older now, where the people that I work with are much more mature than when you're teenagers,
Sure.
it can be a lot. Like I like collaborating now. Back then
Mhm.
it was pretty hard, but these days I enjoy it because everybody has a different. Like I can play all the instruments, but like I can't play it the way that you can. I can't play it the way that this guy can, and they any of these people that I play with, they have a way of speaking that I don't, and I really like what everybody adds.
Yeah, to the
Unless,
song or whatever.
unless I don't like it, and if I don't like it, then it won't
Yeah.
happen.
Uh, so you put out your first project in 2012, Control,
Um,
or was there there's stuff way before that? Is
there
that
was there
that's
wa-
the only one I have? I'm looking at as far as like your
that
online
wa-
discography goes.
yeah, that was the first one that I released where I'd figured out what I was doing. Um, I've put out a number of EPs prior to that, but they're all very different things because they all kind of function like mixtapes more or less.
Mhm.
Um, but that was the one where I decided that I was gonna do like dance pop music. I was going like I figured out the persona, I'd figured out the sound that I wanted to go for. Because before that, it was like acoustic stuff or heavy rock stuff or like 70s power pop stuff and just throwing paint around and figuring it out. But yeah, Control or CTRL was the first like where it was like, okay, this is Dean Ford, this is what I am. And it's kind of just been developing ever since then.
Yeah, that you found it sounds like you found your voice and what you wanted to do with that record.
Exactly.
And with when you put that out and everything, were you playing a lot of shows around Maine? Did you tour outside of there? Like, what was kind of like the next after you put that out? Was there like a milestone that you had that you could remember going into your next release?
Yeah, when I put that out, I was opening for a lot of bigger shows in Maine.
Hmm.
I didn't really do much outside of Maine during that period. Um, Something in like New Hampshire here and there, but I was opening for let's see, I did a show with Fits and the Tantrums,
Oh, cool.
um, and then I opened for Panic at the Disco at one of the bigger, it was a sold out show in my first huge of that level show. I think it was around 1900 people there. Um,
Wow.
and I think this was like read in 2012. Um, it was amazing. That was like, and that week leading up to it, I did all this radio stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, it's happening! I'm doing this. It's finally working, and I rode that wave for a couple years, um, and started building off of that and developing my own fan base and my own thing, and that was pretty incredible.
Yeah. And then a couple of years later is that you put out Get Messy.
Yep, yep. And that like all the songs that were on Get Messy were pretty much written during that time period with the when I did Control.
Uh huh.
Um, I think those songs were written, some of them were written before that EP because I wanted to do an EP and then I wanted to build up I wanted to like fill the canon so to speak of things to release after. So I wrote like 20 something songs and whittled it down over between 2012 and 2013 to 10 songs that would end up being Get Messy.
Okay. And from there, I mean, it's been a minute since you put like a whole project out.
Yeah.
From like 2015, and were you just kind of touring or playing off of those songs up until what, like the pandemic? It sounded like you're playing a ton of shows, and then that happened, so you kind of took a break, 2020-ish.
So I completely stopped playing original music.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that when you started the Prince project?
Yeah. So
Okay, so yeah, sorry, go ahead. I'm telling your story.
no, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, the Prince project.
Oh, there you go. That's rad.
So I almost didn't even put out Get Messy because that whole thing was, like I said, it was written and recorded pretty much by the end of 2013. And for whatever reason, it just took a while to get it out. And in between finishing it and finally releasing it, I started playing music less for myself and more to make money, because I didn't want to get a real job. I just wanted to, I wanted to just hone my craft and also make a living doing it. So I played drums in a cover band called Tickle.
That's a cool name.
It's a name. No, they're great. They're a great band. They're like a top 40 pop band, and that was my first taste at playing in a cover band. And like I'd played cover shows before, but that was my first time doing it for like, this is just what I do. And a friend of mine was like, okay, look, it's great that you're doing that. Just know that if you do that, there's a chance that you might lose a little bit of your drive to do your own stuff. And you might just stay aware of that and make sure that doesn't happen. It happened. And it totally happened. And because like my timeline's getting all confused. A few years before that, right when I released the first EP, Control, when I released it, the CD release show was it was something called Cover to Cover, where a band would play their original music and then they would do a set of an album front to back of their choosing. I chose Purple Rain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a bold choice.
I told you I had an ego. And yeah, I knew it was bold. I knew that it was like, because everybody's like, dude, don't do Prince. I was like, I'm doing Prince. So I did it. And like over the course of those years leading up to when I joined Tickle, I would do it here and there because that first Prince tribute show went so well. It was so much fun. We put so much work into learning all those songs that we didn't just want to do it one time. And but like we couldn't do it all the time because you can't do something that niche in one spot because like, okay, they're doing Purple Rain again. You can't do it every week. So we would do it. I started something called Purple Brains, which was a Halloween show where this would be, I don't know if we're going to do it this year, but this would be the 11th year doing it, I think. Excluding COVID, it would be like the 12th year, if not for COVID. But yeah, so I did it every Halloween. And when I joined Tickle, I started learning a lot more about what goes into the booking of the shows and all of that stuff. And I basically was like, okay, I don't want to do Tickle anymore. I want to do the Prince show because I just think that there's a lot more that I could do with it. And it's a lot more fun and it's a blast. So I ended up just doing that, and that became just what I do. And up until 2020, that was just what I was doing. And
just doing the Prince band.
Yep. And like occasionally I would do one or two original shows if like a proper opening slot came up. But aside from that, it was doing so well, and it was getting so much better, and we were adding so many things to the show, just as far as the actual show, the choreography, the band members, the costumes, just everything about it. It just became like this thing that I could only focus on.
Mhm.
And then with that, it got to a point where I was playing music so much, to go back to what I said at the beginning, where I was playing music so much and I was playing only Prince music, I got burnt out and like never stopped loving it. And I'm still doing it. I love doing it. But I got burnt out and just did not, when I was home, I didn't want to play music. When I was home, I didn't want to listen to Prince, because it's just always there. So
Yeah.
when we got that call that, okay, we have to start canceling shows, I was relieved. And it was like, okay, sweet. I finally get a break. I can finally be okay with just stepping away from this. And so I did. And then about 4 months later, I started writing music again. And here we are.
Was there something that like kind of inspired you to start back up, or was it like, okay, this pandemic thing might be lasting a lot longer than we are anticipating, and you probably made a lot of that money off, at least from the Prince thing, obviously, was the live shows,
Yeah.
and so not having that to do, did that kind of spark? Okay, I should get back into writing my own music, or was there something else, or did you just get bored, or?
Um, Honestly, it was, I listened to an album that, so as bad as it might sound, when this is like March 2020,
Mhm.
I deleted every Prince song that I had from my Spotify. Like I did not listen to it at all, and I didn't want to listen to anything, not because I didn't like it, but because I just needed a break.
Right.
And I started listening to completely different music, um, just to cleanse my palate and just be like, okay, I can listen to what I want to listen to now, so I'm going to. And um, no, there was no plan. I listened to one record like 20 times and was like, this is scratching every itch that I have. This is inspiring me. I want to do something like this. And just like one day I picked up a bass guitar and I sat in my room at like 11:45 at night and just started playing this riff for no other reason than to just sit there and play a riff. And then it turned into a song. And I was like, okay, I wrote a song. I can still write songs. Let's keep writing songs. So the next day I wrote another song. And then
What
2
song
days
was
later,
that, if you don't mind me asking?
um, it's
Or did it
it
make the EP?
no, it's not released yet.
Okay.
Pretty much everything that I wrote during that first just burst of songwriting is not released yet.
Okay.
The stuff that I wrote after that, that I collaborated with Blue Macaulay on, that stuff is out. But like the 25 songs that I wrote on my own, just in this room, completely alone, those are not out yet.
Okay.
And they're wacky. They're they're very different than the Dream Fever EP. They're still pop, but like I said, I was just trying to do whatever felt good when it felt good. So like some of it leans into metal, some of it leans into funk, some of it leans into hip hop, some of it leans into country, some of it leans into Broadway. It's
All
just,
over.
yeah, it's all over the place. Because it was basically like me just purging
Mhm.
and just it's my own little jukebox of like what I would listen to. It's my own radio station, basically.
Okay. What was the album that you were listening to? You said you listened to an album like 20 times through.
Poppy, uh, the album is called I Disagree.
Oh, I know the artist Poppy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I was obsessed with that album for a while. And
Okay.
It's just because like it was everything that I love on one record. And like some of the songs were just like 10 different genres in 3 minutes. And it's like, okay, like I've heard stuff like that before. Like I'm a big fan of like Mr. Bungle and those more experimental stuff things. But when you hear more or less a mainstream artist to some degree, not exactly mainstream, but kind of mainstream. But when you hear some, it just worked for me.
Right.
It's like, okay, you can do this and still have it sound like radio rock. You can do this and still have it sound somewhat commercial. And you can do this and have it sound digestible. And so that just, just lit a fire for me.
Sure. And so once you kind of wrote all these songs, I mean, it sounds like you wrote like 20, 25 songs. When do you just like, how do you then begin Dream Fever? How do you link up with the producer and all that stuff?
So like I said, I didn't really have a plan. I was just having fun. And there was one day that and so there was one day that I was just I was listening to music on Spotify, and so I've been a fan of Bleu for many, many years. We had never met. We had spoken through like Twitter one time, like 12, 13 years ago.
Wow.
But aside from that, I've never met the guy, but I've just been a fan of his music. And I found one of his albums on Spotify that I'd never heard before, listened to it, and was just like, this is not what I thought Blue was. This sounds nothing like anything that he's ever done. I love this. This is like very much where I am right now. And, I wasn't doing anything. Nobody was really doing anything. Everybody wanted to do something. And so I just sent him a message on Instagram saying, hey, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I'd love to collaborate. And like I sent that message to a few people that I was interested in working with, and he hit me back, and we got on the phone, talked about what it was that I wanted to do, what it was he was willing to do. And then a few months later, we got on Zoom and we did our first session. And that's when we wrote Crazy Maker. And it just went so well. Like we hit it off. Like I felt immediately like, okay, we're on the same wavelength. We come from the same school. And we just kept, like, every couple months we'd do another session. And we did that from, I think we started working together February 2021 through the end of the year. And then through the next year. And the whole EP just kind of fell together. And it all, like, even though the sessions were done like months apart, there was just this thread through all the songs, and it just felt like they worked together thematically, musically, the whole vibe, everything. And ended up, because the whole time until we hit like song 4, I didn't really know what it was going to be. And then I was like, okay, cool, this is an EP. Like, and so there it is.
Amazing. Yeah, I like the EP a lot. I think VHS is my favorite song on the EP. And then I also saw, which is, I've had Chris DeMakes on my podcast before, and I saw that he featured that song. Like I just noticed that the other day that you had that he put it in one of his episodes.
Yeah, man. I was
on
actually
his podcast.
I was just listening before I got on this with you. I was just listening to the newest episode of Chris DeMakes a Podcast. I love that. I love that show. And that
yeah,
was
it's
really
cool because he breaks down songs, right, with artists, like how the song, basically one song, right? They sit through and go through one song.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, no, that's one of my favorite podcasts.
That's cool.
I love what he does, and hearing my song on that was really cool.
That's amazing,
It's
man.
especially since that's the only song I did not co-write. That is the only song on that EP that I wrote alone and recorded right here by
Is
myself.
that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite one on the EP.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I listened to the EP through a few times. I'm like, oh wow, this is my favorite one is VHS. I like the whole EP. And then
Yeah.
when I was just kind of doing some research on you before this conversation, I saw that you had the graphic on your Instagram of Krista Makes a Podcast, and I went there and
Yeah.
I saw that you said that he featured it. I was like, oh, that's amazing. How
Yeah.
so that's really cool, man.
No, and it's cool too, because I think that's Blue's favorite song on the EP too, and he did not write it.
Wow, that's really
So,
interesting.
yeah, I mean that's one of those things where it's just like, job well done. Like, thank
Sure.
you. Like it's reassuring. You know, when you're co-writing with somebody and you bring a song to the table that they had nothing to do with, and they tell you that it's their favorite song, like it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's got to be huge validation. And the songs and the artists that he's worked with. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Demi Lovato and Jonas Brothers and all these other people that he's
Oh
written
yeah.
for. So that's really rad. Are you doing anything to support the EP as far as like, are you doing a tour? Are you going to play a bunch of shows?
We're doing
some one.
Yeah, we're doing some shows. Not a whole lot as far as touring right now, but we have some things bubbling. We're doing a few shows with the Pop 2000s tour, with O-Town and
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, I'm really excited. And it's super cool because I've had the opportunity to open for O-Town a couple times. And Ryan Cabrera, who's also on the show, I played with him before as well. So it'll be cool, and I'm really excited about like Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC being the host, because like NSYNC was one of the reasons why I even started doing music to begin with.
Is that right?
Oh yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. I'm not gonna tell you that it was like Led Zeppelin that like, as much as I love that as well, no, it was George Michael and Queen and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys that made me want to be a musician.
That's amazing. Yeah, Chris Patrick. He did like it was around Christmas time. My family and I went. We're in Nashville now. We went to the Gaylord Opryland. Like it was like it's like this big hotel, and they have a bunch of Christmas stuff going on. And he was there like doing some Christmas song thing. He just did a bunch of Christmas songs. I was like, holy shit, like that's the guy from NSYNC. Like this is wild.
Yeah. That dude can sing.
Oh, dude, yeah, he can.
Yeah, that guy can sing for sure.
That's really cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for doing this, Dean.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, I got one more for you before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Fake it till you make it. I mean that's it for me, man. Like if somebody asks if you can do something, tell them yeah, and learn how to do it, and just like go. I don't know. I'm not good with advice. I've never been good with advice.
Great advice, though. I dig that. Thank you so much. Fake it till you make it. I like that.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, man.
Bringing it back.